وللمزيد ينضم إلي من أثينا السيد يانيس بالايولوغوس، الكاتب الصحفي في جريدة كاتمرين اليونانية ومؤلف كتاب The 13th Labor of Hercules. سيد يانيس، بداية كيف يتعامل الإعلام عندكم مع فصول الجدل اليوناني الأوروبي منذ وصول سيبراس إلى الحكم؟
Well, I think there's been an understandable effort, understandable to an extent, to support the new government in its effort to renegotiate some of the aspects of Greece's bailout agreements. But I think that has gone too far, and the media is mostly failing to explain to the Greek people the real terms of the negotiation and the real issues at stake. In a sense, it's feeding the anti-German and anti-European feeling that the government itself is stoking, and that makes any kind of agreement on a new program more difficult.
الواقع اليوم هو يونان على شفير الإفلاس بدون التمويل الأوروبي، وأوروبا تمارس ضغطا هائلا سيجبر أثينا على فتح دفاترها المالية أمام المفتشين من جديد. بالمعنى السياسي، هل بدأ سيبراس يخسر من رصيده الشعبي؟
Well, yes, the issue of where the members of the former Troika, the institutions, or however you want to call it, where they will meet with Greek officials has been very contentious. It's been very hard to get an agreement, to get even low-level officials from the IMF, the Commission, and the ECB to come here and check the data. Of course, it would be impossible and extremely costly to get all the Greek officials to go to Brussels. But it's a politically very sensitive issue because Mr. Tsipras ran on the idea that he would kick the Troika out. And of course, having now agreed to an extension of the program and a negotiation for a new program of some kind, that can only happen if the officials from the three institutions can check the data, and they can only do that here. But because it's so politically difficult for the government, we've had these delays and these arduous negotiations. This, of course, showcases how difficult the actual substantial negotiation is going to be.
كيف قرأتم جملة الاقتراحات التي تقدم بها وزير المالية فاروفاكيس في مقاربة مواضيع الإصلاح والتهرب الضريبي؟
Well, I think there was an initial letter sent which seemed quite promising after the February 20th agreement at the Eurogroup, and then the second list with the 7 reforms which was revealed last week was quite underwhelming. The bit especially about getting housewives and tourists to become undercover tax inspectors caused a lot of sarcastic comments, especially in Brussels and other foreign capitals. So I think there was pressure on Greece to come up with stronger reform proposals. You know, the ideas in that letter were not bad ideas necessarily, but they were not the kind of heavy reform proposals that the Eurogroup was expecting. And I think the Greek side will have to come up with more substantial proposals, and it will have to do so quickly because, as you mentioned earlier, the money is running out for the government. The banks are on the brink of having no liquidity, so the new proposals have to come quick and the agreement has to come quick.
سيد يانيس، كذلك صارت ضجة كبيرة حول كلام وزير المالية عن استفتاء محتمل في حال تعثر المفاوضات مع الأوروبيين. كيف تعامل الإعلام اليوناني مع مسألة الاستفتاء؟
But I think there was alarm at the suggestion because, of course, the last time a top government official, the Prime Minister, Mr. Papandreou, mentioned the idea of a referendum, it was the beginning of a very difficult period for Greece and a real questioning of its ability to remain within the Eurozone back in 2011. So the idea of a referendum, the idea of early elections, which has also been mentioned by some Syriza members, has been viewed with some alarm, and correctly so, because I think if something like that, if a referendum is called before there is progress in the negotiations towards concluding the current review and setting up a new program, it's very unlikely that the ECB will give further liquidity support to the banks. So we will be facing the possibility of going to a referendum or going to an election with the banks possibly even shut.
هل ترى بأننا أمام رحلة مليئة بالمطبات بين تاريخنا هذا وبين يونيو؟
It's a very difficult road. It's a very difficult road because, as I mentioned, the current review has to be concluded, and of course, the demands of the institutions proved too much for the previous government, which was a government centered on a conservative party. I don't think, given all that's happened since January 25, that the institutions will be likely to be very lenient on Mr. Tsipras. So any demands that he accedes to from them will be very hard for him to then get accepted by his own party and his more hardline ministers. And then, of course, that's just about the current review. Then they have to actually set up the terms for the new program, because Greece's financing needs in the coming years are considerable, and there's no real prospect of accessing the markets. So even if Mr. Tsipras can get through the current review by the end of April, it'll be very hard to come to an agreement by the end of June for the next program.
من أثينا الكاتب الصحفي السيد يانيس بالايولوغوس، شكرا جزيلا لك.